taifa kusitisha na kusimamisha kabisa na kukomesha mambo ya mihadarati, ni lazima tuungane kama taifa, tupigane na janga hili la mihadarati. Tuweze kuleta viongozi wote wa kidini, tuweze kuleta viongozi wote wa kijamii na taasisi zote, ili kwa taifa tuweze kusema mambo ya mihadarati hatutaki tena katika nchi yetu. Na serikali ni lazima ichukue hatua kali kwa wale ambao wanaleta mihadarati, wale ambao wanajulikana, na serikali inanyamaza. So Speaker, ni lazima kama taifa tujitokeze kimasomaso na kusema kwamba ni lazima tulinde maisha ya vijana wetu, hasa wale ambao wako katika shule. Asante Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi hii.
Asante. I now call upon member for Mandera South, Honorable Abdul Haro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to put my voice on this important motion. And I take this opportunity to thank Honorable John Makali for this timely motion on expansion of drug and substance abuse rehabilitation centers. I will particularly go straight to the prayer, where the Honorable Member is urging the House prays that the House urges the government to institute intensive programs for the dissemination of information on alcohol and substance abuse in line with the Alcoholic Drinks Control Act 2010 to increase the number of rehabilitation centers across the counties. In addition to the prayer by the Honorable Member, I think two more additional issues can be added there, where we can also urge the government to train particularly clerics from regions like where I come from, the clerics in the mosques and the churches, to be able to deal with this drug abuse menace, because they stand a very good chance to fight this problem. I'll also think it is also important to think about the stigmatization of drug addicts. Once you set up the centers and you start rehabilitating the drug addicts, most of the times these drug addicts become stigmatized in the society. So I think question around sensitization on how to deal with the question of stigmatization of drug addicts is also very important. Honorable Speaker, this drug menace is a national problem now. And even traditionally, areas like Northeastern, which was regarded to have very little drug abuse, is now also joining the queue. It's becoming a problem even in Northeastern, particularly due to the fact that we are bordering two countries, difficult neighbors like Somalia and Ethiopia on the other side. And because of these multiple entry points, a lot of drugs which are even not common to our country are now entering Northeastern through Somalia, and also entering Northeastern through Ethiopia. Most of the time we have seen in the news the police intercepting huge amounts of bang and other drugs entering through these difficult borders. And our youth, both those youths who are in school and those who are out of school, are seriously affected. And just like Honorable Member from Lamu had said earlier, the enemies across, especially the terrorists who want to target our youths, find very good recruitment grounds when there is a lot of drug abuse among the youth, particularly in the region where we come from, where there is a huge idle group of youth. And if these youth are subjected to drugs, then definitely they will be easy target for terrorists to recruit them into their cells, and they may become a problem for this country. And I must say, it's not only the youth who are in school and out of school who are affected, even the adults have joined the queue. And you'll see many homes are now having difficulties because either one parent or both parents are addicts, and it's becoming a major issue, especially to the family unity and also to the family life as we've known it. So the most abused drugs, particularly in the region of Northeastern where I come from, are bang, codeine, and mira, and I think apart from the alcoholic drinks that honorable members has mentioned in his motion, I think these other type of drugs also need to be focused on. And yes, I support the creation of more centers across all counties in this country for those drug rehabilitation centers. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Asante, ningependa kumpa nafasi mbunge wa jimbo la Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Zamzam Chimba, kwa sababu najua pia mmeathirika sana kule Mombasa.
Asante sana Bi Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii na mimi niweze kuzungumza kama mama kaunti ya Mombasa, nikilia sana kwa kuhitaji hizi sehemu za marekebisho ama rehabilitation center. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kama wanavyojua na kila mtu anajua kuwa Mombasa imeathirika zaidi kwa madawa ya kulevya. Watoto wetu wamekuwa mazombi, watoto wetu wanashika vipanga, watoto wetu hawaoi, watoto wetu wakisimama mahali moja, mtoto unapata anaenda mpaka chini na anarudi kwa sababu ya madawa ya kulevya. Nafikiri mkiona wanavyofanya mtashangaa sana. Saa zingine wengine wanaanza kutembea ule mwendo wa polepole, na hata kuzungumza pia wanakuwa na mazungumzo yale ya kujivuta sana. Mheshimiwa Speaker, haya madawa ya kulevya yamekuwa donda sugu katika jamii yetu. Na mimi kama mama county ningependa sana kupigia pondo swala hili la kujenga rehab centers. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kama mama county wa Mombasa nilikuwa najenga pale Mwakirunge GBV center ambayo itakuwa pia na rehabilitation center. Japokuwa nimepata changamoto sana, lakini inaendelea, ila naomba pia tuweze, kuna sehemu ambayo imetengwa ya kujenga rehab center, niweze kupata mfuko ambao waweza kunisaidia nikaweza kujenga pale ili niweze kusaidia vijana wetu wa Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kama mama county pia nimekuwa nikiregesha watoto skuli wale wa second chance. Amini usiamini Mheshimiwa Speaker, wale ni watoto wa kike, lakini wengi walikuwa wameathirika na madawa ya kulevya, na wakishavuta zile dawa wanaingia katika mambo ya kufanya uchafu, wanaingia mambo ya ukahaba, wanafanya mambo mazito sana, na ni watoto wadogo miaka 14, 15, 16. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ilikuwa inanitamausha sana. Wengi wametoa mazungumzo, wakasema mama tunakushukuru, sisi tulikuwa tumeingia katika mambo mazito sana. Lakini Mheshimiwa Speaker, peke yangu siwezi, lazima nipate usaidizi kutoka kwa serikali, tuhakikishe kuwa tunapata rehab centers ambapo hao watoto waweza wakarekebishwa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, Mheshimiwa Speaker, japokuwa itagusa wengi ambao pengine ilikuwa ni biashara yao, mimi siku zote nimekuwa nikijaribu kutafuta na kujua kwa hao watoto walikuwa wananunua madawa ya kulevya kwa kina nani. Mheshimiwa Speaker, hiyo channel yao ni ndefu sana, na kama tunaweza kupata wale wahusika ambao wanauza hizi drugs, tukipata kutoka kwa hawa watoto itatusaidia sana, ili na sisi tuweze kupata jamii ambayo ni ya kunawiri, jamii ambayo inasonga mbele na kujenga taifa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, watoto wengi wa kike pia wamepata ujauzito, mimba za kiholela kwa sababu ya kutumia haya madawa ya kulevya. Wanakuwa hawawezi wakajifahamu, wanafanyiwa vitu vibaya bila wao kujua. Mheshimiwa Speaker, umechangia mimba changa kwa watoto ambao wanakwenda skuli kwa sababu hawawezi wakajiprotect. Mheshimiwa Speaker, haya madawa ya kulevya pia yamechangia watoto wengi kupata maambukizi ya maradhi, na hata hao vijana wamepata maambukizi ya maradhi ya zinaa, wamepata maradhi mengi sana kwa sababu zile sindano ambazo wanatumia, huyo anadunga, kama amelewa mwenzake anachukua pia anatumia, anadunga. Kwa hiyo hakuna kitu ambacho kinawazuia wakiwa wako juu, ama wako hai, wanaita wenyewe wako hai, ama wengine wakuambia arosto-noma. Wakati ambapo wanapata ile arosto, wenyewe wanasema wanakuwa na ule mchakato, wanakuwa na msisimko, kila mtu atakimbilia ile sindani moja ambayo mwenzake ametumia, hajui yule mwenzake ana maradhi gani. Mheshimiwa Speaker, na kwa hiyo mimi naomba tukiwapata hawa tukawatoa. Hata nakumbuka siku moja tulienda pamoja na mke wa Deputy President na tukaenda tukawaona hawa, aliona mwenyewe alisikitika sana. tukaamua kuwa hawa watoto tutapeleka rehab center, lakini mpaka sasa hakuna rehab center. Na mimi pia nachukua fursa hii kuwashukuru ndugu yangu Abdurrahman wa Reach Out, ambaye pia ameweza kufanya kazi hii ndani ya Mombasa County, ameweza kurekebisha vijana wengi sana sana. Mheshimiwa Speaker,
subject, the subject of substance and drug are very clearly. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction is a mental illness. That is where we must dealt with, considered, were one of the first people to raise this issue of addiction. Congratulate the Honorable and I hope that this will not be the last time that we discuss it. We need to not only, I know that Eber Makali's motion on the establishment of government have rehabilitation centers, whether they are established by faith-based, whether they are faith-based or privately owned or government-owned. The issue is, let's just have more treatment centers. As we said, it's an illness. The issue that's challenging, challenge in the treatment of this in this country is not the lack of the treatment center. It's the fact not paid for. Hospital insurance fund only pays a maximum of 60,000 shillings, which is hardly sufficient to treat someone for 8 weeks. It must be taken as an illness such as cancer, diabetes that are chronic and require a long-term treatment, and therefore sufficient resources. Honorable Speaker, I also wish to bring the attention of this House to the Mental Health Task Force that was established in 2019 that came up with very clear recommendations on how to deal with substance abuse and other mental illnesses. Like we said, it is an illness. It's not substance abuse. Substance abuse is a mental illness. It was clear that there need to be awareness relating to it as an illness so that the stigmatization can end, so that people can seek treatment. The reason why people don't seek treatment is because there's stigma around mental health. If you told your employer that I want sick leave because I have an addiction problem, chances are they will fire you. If you raise the issue with your insurance and say that I need to check into rehab and get treatment, they will tell you it is a pre-existing condition and therefore we do not cover it. In fact, a few days ago, I think it was on Monday, I was at the launch of a book called Healing the Mind, written by Professor Frank Jenga. And in that particular launch meeting, when he spoke, he said enemy number one for mental illness is insurance companies. Another enemy number two is the church, because they would say they will pray over you rather than for you to seek conventional treatment. But it was great to hear yesterday that they have now agreed that they can work together hand in hand with the mental health specialists to be able to curb this particular treatment. We also know that treatment, as raised by the Honourable Member for Lamu East, is extremely expensive and also requires extreme supervision. For substance abuse, sometimes the patients have to be given a dose of treatment daily at the hospital so that they can be able to stay away from their addiction. But that...
Please, you have 2 minutes.
Honourable Speaker, thank you for the additional time, because it's something I'm very passionate about. We know that in places like Lamu, if it were not for the Red Cross and other private initiatives that provides, I think, the methadone or something, I forget the exact pronunciation, which is critical, they would not have been able to undertake treatment there. The number of people I saw at King Fayed Hospital just tells you that this substance abuse has reached crisis levels. And even as I close this, I want to call upon the Ministry of Internal Security to deal with the security forces in this country, because they are complacent in the availability and distribution and use of these illegal substances. The police use it as an extortion tax stop to people. So they find you using it, instead of being proper investigators and telling you, work with us and tell us who's your dealer, because they need to arrest the dealers, not the users. But instead, they collect a few shillings from those poor young people who are already very ill. We also know that in all places where illegal and illicit and dangerous and safe alcohol is sold, every chief knows about that den. Every single county commissioner knows about that den. Every single police officer and OCPD and OCS knows. And I'm not afraid to call out the county commissioner of Western Gishu County, Dr. Yale. I did raise it with him, and I pointed out, and I said, in the following places, illegal drugs and illegal alcohol is being sold, they have done nothing about it. They are known to the OCPD. I know a case of Munyaka Primary School, where the person who brews the bad alcohol with drugs is sitting there, a woman called Wanjiro. She has been arrested 13 times, and each time she's only fined 10,000 shillings. Of course, it makes sense to continue with the trade. Yet the OCS of Nairobi Police Station, thank God he's been transferred, but he should not have been transferred. He should have been fired, because he's going to continue with the same problem to wherever he has been transferred to. So it's about time that our security forces are held to account on this particular issue. If I were allowed to speak, I'd go on for 2 hours, but I'll stop there to give other members an opportunity to speak. Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the chance. Asante.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member for Western Gishu County. Honourable members, I would like to welcome students seated in the public gallery this morning, Joyland Marian School, Embakasi East, Nairobi County. You're welcome to the National Assembly to continue observing proceedings of the House. The next opportunity, Honourable members, goes to the Honourable Farah Mali.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to weigh also my ideas on this. Madam Speaker, this country is going to be destroyed, not by anything else, not because of politics, not because of ethnic issues and these other kind of divides. This country is going to be destroyed by drugs and alcohol abuse. The motion here asks for us to have additional rehab centers. Madam Speaker, the experience in this world is that those countries that have the harshest penalties for drug use and drug abuse and drug tradings are some of the cleanest countries in the world today. I would prescribe, and I think we need to do this, that we should have the death penalty. What? For anybody found with anything more than half a kilogram of any form of drugs, including the cannabis sativa. Madam Speaker, the countries that are now in that category, which are the cleanest countries, which are some of the most progressive countries, which have got a GDP that cannot be matched, are China, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore. In the Philippines, they were killing them in the streets, extrajudicial as a matter of fact. Iran, Madam Speaker, Saudi Arabia, we have to prescribe the death penalty for the drug use and the drug trading and the drug trafficking in this country, and that's the only way we are going to have a clean country, and only a clean country can become progressive and can go for life. We have seen drug lords become governors in this country, Madam Speaker. We have seen drug lords enjoy some of the highest positions. We have seen alcoholics in the top offices in this country. Those ones right now are the role models for our children, Madam Speaker. The role models for our children are not the straight-A students. They are not the ones who are going to do very well academically. The role models for our children today are the drug lords who have become members of parliament, who have become governors, who have become everything that one can become in this country. Very soon, we are going to have a drug lord in the form of a Pablo Escobar, who is going to be the president of this country, because that's where we are going. We have seen alcoholics go to the highest offices in this country. Madam Speaker, when the president of Philippines directed his security machineries to look for these people, investigate them, and kill them extrajudicially, that country is now on a very good trajectory in terms of development, in terms of saving the future generations of that country. Madam Speaker, drug lords are going to the primary schools and they're going to the nurseries. They're lacing drugs with sweets to be given to the children so that the children become addicts from a very young age. And because they pay heavily to political parties, they're very close to the highest leadership in the country always. They're able to get away with some of these things. Madam Speaker, I happen to have been on the chair as the Deputy Speaker in the 10th Parliament when this matter was discussed on the floor of the House. And a minister was so helpless that he admitted government facilities were used in the movement of drugs. That is when the Americans came with a list of members of parliament who were drug lords. Who were drug lords, Madam Speaker. And we did nothing about it. The Americans, everybody in the world was telling us, US is a very powerful transit point for drugs. Your children, right now, it is coming from all the countries. It's coming in from Somalia, it's coming in from Ethiopia, it's coming in from Uganda, it's coming in from everywhere. It's a big market for drugs. And the children of this country, if we don't do what we need to do now, Madam Speaker, can I have 2 more minutes if you don't mind?
I'll give you one, Honorable Farah Maalim.
Okay, thank you. Madam Speaker, there is need for us to see the devil in the room. The devil in the room. The problem in this country, the thing that's going to destroy this country and destroy it very big, is because of the manner in which drugs and drug abuse has permeated our society from a very young age. Right now, we have a situation in which the father is a drug addict, the son is a drug addict, and the grandfather is a drug addict. You will find something like that in parts of this country, including the Coast Province. A place like Lamu has been so devastated, you wonder whether it is the government's plan for these people to become all drug addicts and perish in society. I'm not surprised when I see Western Kenya, and I'm not surprised when I see the Central. I'm not surprised the fact that in Central Province, alcohol now is such a powerful menace that very soon somebody is going to say, the same way they talk about the cartels in the coffee sector and the tea sector, they will say the cartels in alcoholics and drugs. Madam Speaker, this country has got to be saved. We are not going to go on making new additional rehab centers. We will have those rehab centers. But why do you deal with the symptoms? Why do you deal with the consequence of something? Why don't you go to the vector itself? It's like somebody, I come from a family where there are a number of medical officers, and one of them one time told me, why do you have to treat malaria? Let's get rid of all the mosquitoes. So why do you have to treat drug issues and abuse and all that? Let's get rid of the drugs by getting rid of the ones who trade in these things and get rid of them in the best possible way. Let's have laws in this country which are going to prescribe the death penalty. I know of a country where a very senior person from one of the African countries, the child of that person went to that country, it was China, and he pleaded for the child to be released. The child was executed. They will execute them. Because you cannot allow the future generations to be destroyed. The drug lords in this country are destroying the future generations and the traders in drugs. So let us not begin looking for rehabilitation centers, how to treat it, how to deal with it. No. We get rid of everybody who is involved in these things from whichever side of this country or border that this thing comes in. Today, I'm told that there are so many powerful farms of cannabis sativa inside Somalia. Most of them even planted by Al-Shabaab, among other people. Among other people. You see, the Americans are happy that Taliban has taken over Afghanistan. Now, for the first time, there is no drug that is coming in from Afghanistan.
Thank you very much, Honorable Farah. The Honorable Dr. Pukose, Member for Entebbe and Chair Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this important motion by Honorable Makali. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I want to support this motion, establishing rehabilitation centers for drug and substance abuse. And from the statistics given, Madam Speaker, you can see the age bracket that is affected, being between 10 to 19, which is a young group. But you ask yourself, this group that are being affected, what is lacking? I think when we talk about substance and drug abuse, you have these children accessing opioids, accessing cannabis sativa, accessing, which is bank, accessing heroin, accessing alcohol. and many other substances within this class that we're calling drugs. Madam Speaker, when we talk of drug and substance abuse, it's both a mental illness, because it is both psychological, it is both emotional, and it is social. And therefore, I think the most important part of it is to look at the social fabric within the society. And as even honorable members lament about it, what is it that we are doing? Because when you talk about that in other countries, it is people are hanged when they are caught with a bank, when they are caught with heroin, when they are caught with cocaine. We are the lawmakers. Have we brought in laws to strengthen our judicial system to make sure that it is prohibitive or it is punitive enough for anybody to engage in, for those who will be able to engage? Because you have those who are engaging in it, they are bringing it, and that's why you have the children, these people between the age of 10 to 19, accessing them. You have those who are engaged in alcohol preparation. And more often you find that they even use other substances, ethanol, to make it even more stronger. And in the process, you expose people to blindness and other chemical substance abuse. Madam Speaker, when we look at the new bill which this House passed the other day, now it's in the Senate, we talk of a fund, which is the chronic illness, emergencies, and critical care. I think that is a fund which we should be able to look at it, that it will be able to take care of treatment for these cases of substance abuse, people who are in the rehabilitation centers who need to be rehabilitated, but we also need to strengthen our mental health care system in the country, so that these people who needs treatment, they can be able to access good medical care. When you look at some of the cases, especially our brothers from Mombasa talking about it, we have centers which are supported by National AIDS Control Council. And in these centers supported by National AIDS Control Council, the patients in that centers that are undergoing rehabilitation, they are not just having alcohol and substance abuse. There are also other comorbid diseases like HIV, because when you are injecting yourself, they are injecting themselves with, they end up transmitting diseases from one to another. And HIV is one of those diseases that is commonly transmitted through multiple injections from one partner to another because of sharing of needles. So I think with that kind of thing happening, it's important that as a House, let's look at coming up with laws that can strengthen and support these institutions. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to support.
Thank you very much. Honorable Faith Gitau, member for Nyandarua County.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this important motion. And I really want to thank John McCarley for coming up with this motion. Indeed, the question that comes in my mind this morning is why this drug abuse with our children? Why are our children in it? And the answer I'm getting within myself is that parenting in this country has become a problem. Parents have become very busy for their children. We have no time to talk to our children anymore. Yes, we may discuss about all this, but the first thing first is that parenting in this country has become a problem. And I think it's a high time for us as parents to go back to where we were before. Many years back, parents were counseling their children. And it is the high time we go back there. Because I don't see why my children should start drug abuse if I'm not there for them. But we've become very busy. And my prayer this morning, even as we start the rehabilitation centers in this nation, parents must start talking to their children. Because if we fail this, we have no future generation. And therefore, for me, I support that counties should have rehabilitation centers, all counties, 1 or 2. But at the same time, I am calling on Kenyan parents to talk to our children, because that is the only way. Even as we support our clergy, our Muslim brothers and sisters, you know, to take that responsibility. Yes, we cannot give them the total responsibility. We also need to be there for our children. So,
thank you very much, Honorable Faith Gitau. Honorable members, time allocated for this motion is over, and I'm going to call upon the mover to reply. The mover can give a chance to several people. If you choose to do so, Honorable Makali.
Give me the mic. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to reply to the motion. Because of the interest this motion has generated, Madam Speaker, I'll be seeking your permission to allocate 1 minute to many of the ranking members here and my colleagues who want to put in a word, 1 minute each. But at the outset, let me thank all the members who have made contributions.
Before you do that, are you going to give them a chance?
Yes, I'm going to give them a chance,
Please go ahead and do that.
Yes,
Before you do anything else.
I will give at least 1 minute each to the Honorable Mohammed Ali of Nyali, the Honorable George Koimburi, the Honorable Phyllis Barto, the Honorable Naomi Wako, the Honorable Mary Omaua, the Honorable Joyce Kamene, the Honorable Jared Okello, the Honorable Martin Wanyonyi, and finally, the Honorable Member. Thank you. Well, we could start with the Honorable.
Honorable members, we follow the order. The Honorable Mohammed Ali, member for Nyali.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, dakika ni moja, kwa hivyo sitakuwa na mengi ya kusema ila kumpongeza John Makali Mheshimiwa kwa kupendekeza kuwa na vituo vya matibabu mingi zaidi nchini Kenya. Pia kando na kuwa na hizi vituo, ningelipendekeza pia katika hii hoja kuwe zijengwe nje ya mji, kwa sababu nyingi zinajengwa karibu na wananchi. Kama Nyali kwa mfano, tuko na moja karibu na shule ya msingi ya Fria, ambaye badala ya kusaidia inafanya watoto wengi wajiingize katika masuala ya dawa za kulevya. Pia isiwe tu dawa za kulevya inayozungumziwa kila siku kicha, ni masuala ya pombe haramu. Dawa za kulevya za heroin, cocaine zimemaliza sana watoto wetu katika ukanda wa Pwani. Kwa hivyo hizo pia zipewe kipaumbele. Na nakubaliana na kauli mbiu ya mheshimiwa hapa aliposema adhabu ya kifo itolewe. Ukienda mataifa kama Singapore, Malaysia, ukifika katika uwanja wa kimataifa.
Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Yangu kwanza ni kumpongeza Mheshimiwa John Makari sababu ya kutoa hoja hii muhimu ambayo ni ya kupambana na dawa za kulevya humu nchini. Bi Speaker, kama vile mnavyojua ni kwamba pale kwangu Juja kuna mashule ambayo ni ya university ambayo ni zaidi ya mashule 5 ikiwepo Jomo Kenyatta University. Tumeweza kuchukua hatua muhimu ambayo ni ya kupambana na dawa za kulevya, sababu vijana wetu wamekuwa wakija pale na kutumia dawa za kulevya, tukapambana nao siku ya jana.
The Honorable Phyllis Barto, Professor.
Madam Speaker, I would want to thank Mheshimiwa John Makali for bringing this motion on expansion of drugs and substance abuse rehabilitation centers. Madam Speaker, we all know the effects of drugs and substances. For example, in my constituency, we are farmers. We no longer even have young people to tend our farms or to participate in productivity. We have cases of students dropping out from school and so many. How I wish when we establish these rehabilitation centers, when we increase, let us also put very good structures in place so that we don't have the young people relapse, because we have had cases where they are
The Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this, as I also congratulate Mheshimiwa Makali. Madam Speaker, young people have been affected, and as it has been rightly put, the drug users are aged between 10 to 19. That is quite prime, and in most of our primary schools and high schools, our young people are affected, and treatment is quite expensive. Many parents have nowhere to take them, and that is why I stand to support the rehabilitation centers in all the counties, and if possible, in all the constituencies. Madam Speaker, again, we need to know that the drug dealers are people who are well known, and I wonder why as a country we are not able to give priority to what we need to give to. Because drug dealers are well known, they are respected, they have money, they can do whatever they want.
The Honorable Joyce Kamene.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Honorable Mheshimiwa Makali for this very important motion. Madam Speaker, I want to be brief. This drug abuse and substance is a menace to our country. As we talk, Honorable Speaker, I lost a dear family member yesterday. We were trying to fight because of the drug abuse, and before he got a second chance for the rehabilitation, he took his life. So I know what this means. We've been struggling with him, and honestly, through the security, because they know all the people that are selling these drugs. You take your children to a rehabilitation.
Am I allowed to give her a minute? I'm not allowed.
Same drugs. The guys that are selling these drugs, something has to be done. Through the security docket, something has to be done. It is very painful. It is very painful. Bulunzi Kaliambeu Mutinda, may his soul rest in peace. It is painful. It is painful. It is painful.
The Honorable Mary Wamaua.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the chance. Let me start by congratulating the owner of the motion, Honorable Makari. Honorable Speaker, of what has been aired by all the members who have spoken, it is true, and this is the way that we are supposed to treat this issue. Madam Speaker, the issue of drugs and substance abuse is wrong. It has taken long. That is what I want to mean. But Madam Speaker, it only takes a blink of the eye from the government and finishes the whole business. The cartels who deals with the drugs are known in this country. And Madam Speaker, if the government want to use its structures and agencies to deal with this one-off, it is very possible. Madam Speaker, you hear what our friend...
The Honorable Jared Okello.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank Honorable Makali for this. Madam Speaker, we as African society have lost it all. We chose to embrace the Western culture, abandoning our own, that made it possible for the upbringing of children to be under the care of every African. When we messed on the streets, we could be beaten up by anybody because my upbringing was a preserve of the entire society. Madam Speaker, we have chosen to embrace the Western culture, including LGBTQ, and those countries that are anti their own moves are receiving trade sanctions. And therefore, as Africans, we have to step back, reflect, and retool in order that our children can have safer haven. Let's deal with the sources and not deal with the effects of substance abuse, Madam Speaker. Let us go to those who sell this.
The Honorable Wanyonyi. Please trace the Honorable Wanyonyi, seated on my right.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, I also support this particular motion. Madam Speaker, the future of this nation belongs to these young people that has shown that they are the greatest consumers of these drugs and substances, Madam Speaker. So that's why, Madam Speaker, I support this motion. Beyond his Honorable Makali's prayers that we need to initiate and establish rehabilitation centers, we need also to have a clear budget in terms of supporting these particular rehabilitation centers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, secondly, also, Schedule 4 of the Constitution clearly places this particular mandate of drug control in county governments. We want also to hold county governments accountable in terms of what they are doing in controlling and in destroying and reducing.
Lastly, honorable members, the Honorable Omar Mwinyi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the onset, I would want to lament. I remember the last government of President Uhuru Kenyatta, we had a whole ship which was destroyed at sea because it contained drugs. But we never had anybody who was arrested because he was the one who was owning that ship. So it means there is something that is wrong with our way of dealing with drug addicts and drug sellers. Then, Madam Speaker, the other thing is about our history. We used to have sports facilities. We used to have social halls where children used to, or the youth used to socialize. These days, these things are no longer there. The sports fields are now taken over for construction of housing. The social halls are no longer for the youth. So there's something definitely wrong about how we are bringing our youth. Then finally, Madam Speaker, we are talking about...
Thank you very much, Honorable Mwinyi. The rules do not allow that. The Honorable Makali, please proceed. The Honorable Makali.
Minute.
You just spoke because he gave you 1 minute, and I am not in a position to add you another one. I'm very sorry, my friend, Honorable Omar Mwinyi. The Honorable Makali, you have only 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the chance. I wish to thank all the members who have contributed to this particular motion. As it has turned out, this is a crisis of monumental proportions. We need to approach it from a multifaceted approach, both the national government and the county governments. The county governments are given power to control drugs, but, Madam Speaker, we need to tell them that they need to up their game. Article 6 of the Constitution says the county government shall cooperate with the national government. The statistics that have come from NACADA are appalling. We need to treat drug and substance abuse as an illness, as pointed out by all the senior members of this particular House, and empower the national campaign against drug and substance abuse. to have it funded to ensure that we have at least a rehabilitation center in each and every county. We need to treat people who are suffering from drug and substance abuse not as villains, but as, as our brothers and sisters who require rehabilitation. We need to treat it as an illness and work towards having these people incorporated back in our societies. We need to undertake a paradigm shift in the way we have been treating people who suffer from drug and substance abuse by looking for solutions, rehabilitating them in societies than treating them as criminals, harassing them left, right, and center. But the government has the ultimate responsibility to ensure that all these barons who peddle drugs, who give drugs to our youth, are handled and taken care of. We urge the Honorable House, Madam Speaker, to pass this particular motion so that we can be able to empower NACADA to be able to.
Please reply on record. Just your last sentence, Honorable Makali.
I beg to reply, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makali. Honorable members, question to be put for this motion is deferred to the next time, as it will be scheduled by the House Business Committee. Next order.
Order number 10. Motion banning the growing of eucalyptus trees in the country.
The Honorable Moses Kirima. The Honorable Moses Kirima is not in the House, so this motion is deferred. Next order.
Order number 11. Motion establishment of strategic grain storage, reserves, and silos in close proximity to smallholder farmers.
The Honorable Jessica Mbalu. The Honorable Jessica Mbalu is not in the House, so this motion is deferred.
Order number 12. Motion policy on integrating a curriculum for environmental conservation in primary and secondary schools.
The Honorable Umul Kher Kasim. The Honorable Umul Kher Kasim is not in the House, so that motion is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 13. Motion regulation of the sugar industry to discourage branding of sugar by non-millers.
What is out of order, Honorable Jared?
Madam Speaker, so far you have called out actually four different items within the order paper, and unfortunately my colleagues, the sponsors of these motions, aren't in the House. Madam Speaker, we understand the stringent time that this House is having, and I want to patiently and with great meekness ask my colleagues who have matters pending before this House, and the clerk of the National Assembly does send out the order paper in good time, that they will show up in the House so that we can transact businesses in good time. We have very few days remaining before we take our long recess, and I know the tray is full, and therefore we need to be proactive, Madam Speaker. I understand that probably they are held up in various parliamentary activities, but let's also prioritize, especially when we have issues pending in the name of motions in our names to appear before this House, and we help you transact your business at the end of the day. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and it is just but a very good advice to my colleagues, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jared. Just for information to the House, is that the motions that we have read, the members concerned are engaged in other official duties, and they had also informed the Speaker. So there is nothing out of order. That is why we have deferred. We did not draw. We have deferred the motions to be given another opportunity. Next order. I had called. Had I called the next order? I think he had read, right? Okay. The Honorable Peter Salasia, please proceed to move your motion.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move aware that the importation and exportation of sugar is regulated by various laws, including the Crops Act and the Agriculture and Food Authority Act 2013. Further aware that the Agriculture and the Food Authority is charged with the responsibility of regulating the importation and exportation of the sugar in the country in accordance with the law. Noting that the importation of the sugar is also negotiated within the regional trade blocks, frameworks, and agreements to enable the country to meet the demand for sugar. Further noting that individuals or entities are allowed to import sugar, provided they obtain the necessary permits and meet the required standard. Concerned that despite these regulations, there have been instances of illegal importation of low-quality sugar or adulterated sugar. Further concerned that unscrupulous traders have been found to rebrand the sugar which does not meet the standards of Kenya Bureau of Standards specification. Deeply concerned that this poses significant health risks to consumers as well as undermining the efforts to regulate and strengthen the sugar industry to protect local millers, acknowledging that country has the potential to produce enough sugar to meet its domestic demand, as the sector has been a key driver of economic growth, further acknowledging that there is need for concerted efforts by stakeholders to discourage the branding of sugar by non-millers and promote the development of the local sugar industry. Now, therefore, this House resolved that the government, through the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Industry, ensures the strict operationalization of the regulatory frameworks governing sugar importation into the country. Madam Speaker, as you have heard, it's very true that indeed we have gone through a lot of challenges as a country. We remember we had the mercury sugar, which was imported and which was flooded into the market, into the Kenyan market. And it's because of this that we do not have the regulation. And that's why you realize that in most cases, you'll find that every sugar is being branded by the supermarket. And this one also gives a lot of loopholes for those scrupulous traders who gets to import sugar, smuggle the sugar into the country. And this one also poses a very unhealthy situation into the Kenyans. That is the reason why we decided that as a country we need to have regulation. And we know that very soon, because of the COMESA agreements about the trade, you'll find that there'll be free importation of the duty-free sugar that will be coming into this country. This one is going to pose a lot of challenges to our industry, and is also going to pose a lot of challenges to the health situation of our people. That is why I'm here to beg through the Ministry of the Trade that we need to have regulation so that any sugar, we must have the traceability of any sugar that comes. If we know that this sugar is coming from Nigeria, Kenya should know that this is was brought in Kenya by this country, by this factory. It was manufactured where. This was the deadline, or if the safety measures as per the KEBS. That is going to help protect our people, and at the same time, it's also going to protect our local industry. And that is why it's also going to help the government in terms of the tax collection revenue, because we will be able to trace and know this sugar that was being brought in this country, where it paid for the revenue or the tax that is needed and all that. So this one is also a measure to increase the revenue in this country. So I wish that Madam Speaker to help me forward this, so that this one can be taken into consideration, so that any sugar that comes in the country, whether by and in fact, I would wish that no sugar should be branded by the supermarkets, unless maybe if we can get convinced, but it should be strictly from those companies that they come from. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to move this motion and welcome any observation from honorable members.
Honorable Salasia, do you have anyone to second your motion?
Namboka is here, will support me.
Okay, before she seconds. Thank you very much. Honorable members, before I call upon the member for Mombasa County, I would like to recognize a delegation of members of Nandi County Assembly Service Board and staff of the Assembly seated in the Speaker's Gallery. They are here to benchmark with the Directorate of Human Capital and Administrative Services on the best human resource practices. On my own behalf and that of the House, I wish to welcome them to the National Assembly and wish them fruitful engagements. You're welcome. The motion being seconded by the member for Mombasa County, you may proceed.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi napenda kumuunga Mheshimiwa Salasia kwa mjadala wake wa leo kuhusu sukari. Mheshimiwa Spika, mjadala huu ni mzuri sana kwa sababu tumeona wale wakulima wa sukari wamekuwa wakipata mapato madogo sana. Wanalima mashamba makubwa lakini mapato ambayo inatoka inakuwa kidogo sana. Hata kuna wakati mmoja mimi nimelima sukari, lakini nilikuwa frustrated sana kulipwa hata yale mapeni, na mapeni ambayo yalikuwa yamekadiriwa haikuwa yale ambayo niliweza kupata. Ilikuwa pesa kidogo sana, na nikawaelewa zaidi wakulima wa sukari wanavyopata mtihani. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, kumekuwa na tetesi na hata tumeona kuwa ile karatasi za sukari zimeandikwa kama kampuni ya sukari ya Mumias ya wapi, kumbe ambao wamefanya ni wale ambao wanabuni tu, wanajaribu kuchukua nembo za wenzao na kuweza kupata kuuza zaidi. Kwa hiyo hii ikiweza kufanyika, Mheshimiwa Spika, wale wakulima wanaweza kupata ulinzi katika mazao yao na wakaweza kuuza brand zao wenyewe bila kuingiliwa na mtu yote. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa wakulima wa sukari ndio maskini katika taifa hii, wakati kuna watu ambao wanaleta sukari kutoka nje. Tumeona sukari iliweza kutoka Brazil, zingine zimekuja zikiwa na mercury, ikawa inaleta magonjwa ndani ya taifa hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, na wale wezi ambao wanatumia njia hizi za kuweza kuleta sukari kutoka nje wakiumiza wakulima wetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, naona hii mjadala ya Mheshimiwa Salasia itaweza kusaidia na kuweza kuzuia mambo kama haya. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu wengine pia wanataka kuchangia. Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba nikomee hapa, niseme naunga na namsecond huyu Mheshimiwa Salasia. Asante sana.
Asante sana. Honorable members, I now propose the question that aware that the importation and exportation of sugar is regulated by various laws, including Crops Act and Agriculture and Food Authority Act 2013. Further aware that Agriculture and Food Authority is charged with the responsibility of regulating the importation and exportation of sugar in the country in accordance with the law, noting that the importation of sugar is also negotiated within the regional trade blocks, frameworks and agreements to enable the country to meet the demand for sugar. Further noting that individuals or entities are allowed to import sugar provided they obtain the necessary permits and meet the required standards. Concerned that despite these regulations, there have been instances of illegal importation of low-quality sugar or adulterated sugar. Further concerned that unscrupulous traders have been found to rebrand the sugar, which does not meet the standards of Kenya Bureau of Standards specifications. Deeply concerned that this poses significant health risks to consumers, as well as undermining the efforts to regulate and strengthen the sugar industry to protect local millers, acknowledging that the country has the potential to produce enough sugar to meet its domestic demand, as the sector has been a key driver of economic growth. Further, acknowledging that there is need for concerted effort by stakeholders to discourage the branding of sugar by non-millers and promote the development of local sugar industry. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the government, through the Ministry of Trade, Investments and Industry, ensures strict operationalization of the regulatory frameworks governing sugar importation into the country. Honorable members, I give the first opportunity to the member for Samburu County, the Honorable Pauline Lengurus. Honorable Lengurus seems to have stepped out of the House, followed then by the Honorable Adan Haji, member for Mandera West. The Honorable member for Mandera West seems to have stepped out of the House also. The Honorable Rashid Bedziba, member for Kisauni.
Asante sana Madam Speaker kunipa fursa hii na mimi weza kupenyeza sauti yangu. Ingawa hasa nilikuwa nataka kuzungumzia kuhusu mihadarati kwa sababu imeniathiri sana katika eneo bunge la Kisauni, lakini sikupata nafasi. Si neno, lakini wacha nizungumzie sukari vile imezungumzwa na Mheshimiwa Salasia. Ningependa kusema kwamba serikali iwe waangalifu katika kulinda viwanja vyetu. Ikiwa viwanja vyetu vinatoa bidhaa ya kutosha, hakuna haja ya kuagiza kutoka mataifa ya nje. Ni kwa sababu mnapoagiza kutoka mataifa ya nje, mnafanya vijana wetu wengi wanakaa bila ajira. Ni vyema sana tuvikuze viwanja vyetu ndio tuwe na ajira na tuwe na nguvu ya kiuchumi ya nchi yetu ndani. Wakulima wetu wanalima sukari na bidhaa zingine, lakini wanashindwa mahali ya kupauzia kwa sababu vitu vingi vimeagizwa kutoka nje. Kwa hivyo serikali ikae imara kuhakikisha kwamba tunawapa nguvu wakulima wetu, tunawapa kama ni hizo mbolea, tunafanya mambo yao yawe rahisi ili wakuze hiyo bidhaa nyingi iweze kututosheleza sisi kama taifa. Na ikiwa taifa litabidi liagize kutoka nje, ni lazima liweke mikakati kwamba wale watakaoleta sukari kutoka nje wanaweka vibandiko vyao wao, wasije wakatumia vyetu, ili mnunuzi akienda supermarket ama duka lolote anafanya maamuzi kwamba sisi tunanunua sukari hii na hii hatununua. Na kama unavyojua sukari yetu ya Kenya ni ya Mumias na nyingine ni sukari nzuri na ziko katika uangalifu, lakini wao wanapoleta sukari wanaingiza vibandiko hivyo, wanatutatiza. Na ndio maana unasikia tumepatikana sukari ya sumu, kunapatikana mambo haya na yale, kwa sababu tunakuwa rahisi sisi kuwa dumping, watu mkuja kutupa bidhaa zao. Kwa hivyo mimi pia naunga mkono kwamba serikali yake mikakati mizuri ya kulinda viwanda vyetu ambavyo vinaleta faida. Haina haja kuviondoa ama haina haja kuleta watu kutoka nje. Kama saa hizi nataka bandari kubinafsishwa, hiyo tunakataa. Kwa haya mengi nasema asante sana Madam Speaker.
Asante mbunge wa Kisauni. Mbunge wa Sirisia, Mheshimiwa John Waluke.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this very important motion. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion, and I want to thank Honorable Salasia for bringing up this motion, Madam Speaker. The digest of this motion, Madam Speaker, about the traders who brand and rebrand sugar in the supermarkets. Madam Speaker, it is real. Even you, when you've bought your sugar, sometimes you can get a label written Neighbors Supermarket or Hetia Supermarket. Madam Speaker, these supermarkets does not have any mill that mills sugar. And when you check, Madam Speaker, the dates of manufacture, the dates of expiry is not labeled, it's not there. So, Madam Speaker, we are buying sugar maybe without knowing where this sugar is coming from. And Madam Speaker, I suspect that the sugar that was banned by this House, Madam Speaker, which was imported illegally, that had a mercury, Madam Speaker, I think it's coming from those supermarkets that are labeling sugar without permits. They don't have a permit to label. And Madam Speaker, I think that is where we need to scrutinize and ban, Madam Speaker, that supermarkets are not authorized to label sugar, Madam Speaker. For us as human beings, Madam Speaker, we have been buying sugar from sugar companies. And we are sure with our lives, if I buy sugar written maybe Sony Sugar Company or a window, I'm sure with it. Because I know it is coming from a known sugar company. But allowing, Madam Speaker, the supermarkets labeling sugar without authority from anywhere, Madam Speaker, it is dangerous to us as human beings because we don't know where it comes from. So, Madam Speaker, we need as a House to decide and stop supermarkets for labeling sugar without any authority. Madam Speaker, for those few remarks, I want to support this motion, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Sirisia. The Honorable Japheth Nyakundi, Member for Kitutu Chache North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to support this motion by Honorable Salasia and on branding of sugar and non-millers. We know the demand for sugar is more than the supply. So it is allowed for sugar to be imported, but we should not allow millers to bring in sugar and brand them in a manner that we don't understand. For example, we know that Mumia's company was locked down, but we find out that Rai brands sugar, and we have sugar of Mumia labeled in Mumia's packages, while we know, and we clearly know, that Mumia's sugar is not working at the moment. So I want to support this motion, and I also want to thank the government through this House for accepting to scrap off about 117 billion that is debt owed by these companies, so that these sugar companies can also start working and farmers can get their dues, because our farmers are running poor. Our farmers cannot get money in their pocket to take their kids to school to do their work. So I want to support this motion by Honorable Salasia that regulations should be put in place so that all the companies that brand sugar, we should know where these sugar companies, where these people who import sugar, who are they, what do they do, what is the name of their companies, so that we don't have contraband sugars like the one we had last time, which are very harmful to our people, which are harmful to our health. And for this purpose, I want to support this motion by my very good friend, Honorable Salasia. As you know, sugar in our places from where we come from, sugar is our gold, sugar is our life, sugar is our main economic activities. So I want to support Honorable Salasia. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi, Member for Dagoretti North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support this motion and to thank the Honorable Salasia for giving us an opportunity. Madam Speaker, you realize for the last few weeks we've been talking about sugar, we've been pushing the agenda. And now, Madam Speaker, here we are now, we are talking about branding. And I think, Madam Speaker, when you look at those steps, you realize that this is an industry that I know is very, very emotive, because sugar is just like gold. Sugar is like it's a drug, Madam Speaker. It moves, and everyone would wish to do this business because they know it's big business. But Madam Speaker, as we move on and even appreciating what the President has done to remove the debt, then now we must start talking about branding, because that's how you bring back the economy of that industry. that if we are not able to look at what happens in the supermarkets today, Madam Speaker, if you walk in any supermarket, you'll find so many sugars, and they are branded the names of the supermarkets. And you wonder, so this sugar, it's imported, yes, but from which country? And you remember in 2014, Madam Speaker, KEBS had warned the retailers that it is against packaging sugar without labeling the name of the miller and the origin of where the sugar has come. And one thing that we find so difficult in this country, Madam Speaker, is we go into something, we push an agenda, all of a sudden we just have laxity and things just go back to where we've started, Madam Speaker. And that is the biggest challenge we always face as Kenya. That indeed, when we are pushing for an agenda, we are so vibrant in pushing the agenda. Then all of a sudden, when the agenda picks, all the institutions that are supposed to be there to monitor are the same institutions that will now find themselves compromised, and you find yourself again struggling with the same challenge. So in branding of sugar, right now, if you go to all these supermarkets, you'll find them. But nobody questions. Nobody asks. Yet we are saying KEBS was there in 2014, Madam Speaker, warning. So sometimes we have to ask. And if indeed Parliament is serious in terms of just bringing back this economy of Kenya, and also ensuring now corruption has to stop in this country, I know this House can do it, Madam Speaker. And we can do it so well. But we need to ask ourselves, how do we focus, knowing very well how Kenyans are struggling, how Kenyans are suffering, but at the same time, how do we as this Parliament cushion and find ourselves that we can support? And therefore, as I support this motion, Madam Speaker, I want us to really, after we have pushed this, then it has to go to regulations. And I'm hoping our Chair Chepkonga can pick this, so that we are very clear in commodities that we are saying. If we are saying build Kenya, buy Kenya, if we are saying these are industries of Kenya, we are trying to revive them, if indeed we are able to remove all this debt, then we must caution to see this is an industry that must build back itself, Madam Speaker, and must start seeing growth. And farmers can also feel that growth, and they will be proud of even going back and ensuring that we have plantations of cane to do this. So with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to thank you, but also to thank Salasia, and to end by saying, let us also remember health is another issue, and sugar is the one that is spiking our health that we have today. It is something also we need to talk about, Madam Speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Beatrice Elachi. The Honorable Geoffrey Roku, member from Mbeere North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I rise to reject this motion because, Madam Speaker, this country has ratified a number of agreements, one of them being COMESA, where we have to import goods and services within the region of COMESA. And one of the key important things which we bought from COMESA region is sugar. And sugar is one of the commodities which is used in our household on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, if this House decides to come up with restrictions or regulations which will hinder a smooth implementation of some of these agreements we have within the COMESA region, it means, Madam Speaker, we will not be doing justice to the citizens of the Republic of Kenya. Number two, Madam Speaker, is that the costs of inputs as far as farming of sugar is concerned, you realize we better come up with more innovative strategies as a House on how we can lower the cost of inputs, farm inputs, so that sugar production, and not only sugar production, but also other agricultural crops production can come down, so that our sugar can be competitive within Kenya and also within the region. So it will be important, Madam Speaker, if we are talking about fertilizers, if you are talking about pesticides, if we are talking about mechanization of farming, and how we can be able to import farm input which we use, like tractors, machines, in a more cheaper manner. If the government of the Republic of Kenya can be able to have an exchange program where some of these machines we use in our farms can come into our nation in a more cheaper manner. Either we waive some taxes, or even we have the technology which we can produce some of these machines in our country, which will end up lowering the cost of production of our sugar canes. And this will lower the cost, Madam Speaker. So I urge the House to be more innovative. A few weeks ago, or last week, Madam Speaker, we passed a sugar bill in this House. I think it will be prudent for us to wait and see how this law, which was enacted 1 week ago, as far as sugar is concerned, how it's going to be implemented, and if it can be able to shape the industry. If we come up with another regulation on top of what we passed 1 week ago, we will not be doing service. We will be doing disservice to the people of the Republic. Madam Speaker, because of those reasons I have mentioned, I think it is prudent for this House to reject this motion, give space for the bill which has just been enacted by this House to be implemented, at the same time to ensure we don't breach the agreement which have been signed by our nation as far as commercial industry, commercial region is concerned. I therefore, Madam Speaker, reject the motion. Thank you.
The Honorable Mwangi Kiunjuri. The Honorable Fatuma Mohammed, member for Migori County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I rise to support the motion, and I thank Honorable Salasia for bringing this motion. Madam Speaker, I come from Migori County, where we have Sony Sugar. We grow a lot of sugarcane in Migori County. It is very disappointing, Madam Speaker, that our company, Sony Sugar, has been falling all the time. Ever since I was born, I found this company struggling to survive. And you find that every government that has been there, I'm sorry to say this, each and every government that has been there, they are the main cartels of sugar. There is nobody or businessman who can do business of cartelling sugar without the involvement of the top government corrupt officials. And so they are the reasons why we are suffering. They import sugar. Sony Sugar itself will import sugar, will package the sugar, and sell the sugar marked Sony Sugar, packed in bags Sony Sugar. Yet we know very well that these sugars are being imported outside Kenya. The sugarcane farmers are struggling. Their sugarcane is in the farm. They have loans. They are not being paid. The sugar rots there. Sometimes the sugarcane is cut. They are not paid. They are servicing loans. Yet the government that is supposed to protect them and help them is the same government, in quote, using cartels to make these factories fall. I appreciate the fact that the president did write off the loans that the companies own. But my question is, what next? I understand that there is a way they're planning to give some other people, may I use the word, to rent or lease out the companies. My question is, who is the person that is coming to take Sony Sugar as an investor? Is he going to buy our sugarcane from our farm, or they're going to do the same tricks, buy from two farmers and import billions of sugar tons into the country and package them using the company logo? It is very unfortunate. And if this government is honest, I request them to put everything open. It could be the same cartels. The big fish in the government, they are going to buy these factories, not really buy, lease out the factory, and then import sugar and come and pretend that Sony Sugar, Mumias, and the rest are doing well. I beg the government, if you are honest and you know God exists, be honest with the farmers. The sugarcane farmers are poor people, totally poor people. In fact, when you give bursaries, the number one people we give to are the farmers. Yet the farmers are supposed to be the richest people because they are the ones who are feeding us. So I request that we should be involved as Wananchi who come from those areas that we grow sugar. Every step should involve Wananchi, and every decision that is made, we should be involved, and not government to sit and make decision for us. I rest my case. I support.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Timothy Toroitich, member for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion by Honorable Peter Salasia. Honorable Speaker, I wish to thank the people of Mumias East for electing such a forward-thinking Member of Parliament to this Honorable August House. Honorable Speaker, the rain started beating the sugar industry since the year 2013. Honorable Speaker, when the Sugar Act of 2013 was repealed, and the matters to do with sugar was placed under the Crops Act. That is where the problem started in terms of the sugar industry. Honorable Speaker, the matters to do with sugar was put under a directorate in the AFA, that is Agriculture and Food Authority, and that is where the problem began in the sugar industry. Honorable Speaker, this motion is good, but it might have been overtaken by events, for the reason that 2 weeks ago, this House passed the Sugar Act and reinstated that particular piece of legislation that was there in the year 2013. And, Honorable Speaker, under that Sugar Act, that is the Kenya Sugar Board was reintroduced under that particular piece of legislation. So that means matters to do with sugar, the entire matters to do with sugar shall now be handled by the Kenya Sugar Board, which I believe will address matters to do with sugar in this country. Honorable Speaker, the sugar industry has been run by cartels, by shrewd business people who have run that enterprise, and they have run it down. And Honorable Speaker, I believe that with the Kenya Sugar Board, which has been brought in under the Kenya Sugar Act, then that problem will be solved once and for all. Honorable Speaker, can you imagine that in this country, our citizens have been taking mercury, and we have the Kenya Bureau of Standards in this country, and our citizens have been ingesting mercury into their bloodstream, and we believe even that is the cause of cancer in this country, because if you compare the statistics of cancer in this country and in Europe, other countries, you realize that majority of people going for treatment in India, in this country, there is a traffic jam in JKIA of our people going to India because of cancer. Madam Speaker, if you do compare the statistics of this country and other African countries, we are losing 100,000 people in Kenya every year out of cancer. And I believe, Honorable Speaker, since we have now the Kenya Sugar Board, that board will take its responsibility seriously, propose regulations that will be able to regulate the sugar industry in terms of importation of unadulterated sugar in the country. And secondly, Honorable Speaker, to do with the issue of packaging. We cannot have sugar that comes to this country from countries that have not been authorized to do so by AFA, and then they are packaged in our industries, they are packaged in our supermarkets as sugar that comes from Mumias. Yet, Mumias is not involved in the production of that particular sugar. So, Honorable Speaker, I thank the Honorable Member. I support this motion to the effect that importation of sugar in this country must be regulated, and I believe it shall be regulated because we now have the Sugar Act, which was passed by this House, and it is in the Senate. I believe the Senate will pass that particular piece of legislation as it is, without amendments. And then we have two things. We have regulation of sugar. Number two, we stop the repackaging or the packaging of sugar from countries that have not been approved by the Sugar Board as was adopted by the legislation that was passed in this House. Madam Speaker, I support that motion fully. Thank you.
The Honorable Babu Owino, member for Embakasi East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the motion by Honorable Peter Salasia on the regulation of the sugar industry to discourage branding of sugar by non-millers. And Madam Speaker, number one is that what we can locally produce, we should never import. We are advised in economics that any product, any good that can be locally produced, manufactured, should never be imported, because if you import such goods, then you increase or rather encourage what we call in economics absorption. Therefore, we should always encourage what we call mercantilism, where we manufacture. In the process of manufacturing, we will promote our local industries. As we promote our local industries, Honorable Speaker, we will increase or rather create jobs for our young men and women in this nation. Honorable Speaker, this is a nation where we don't appreciate our local industry, and that is the only way we can grow economically. Kenya imports over 80% of the goods that we are consuming, including a toothpick, Madam Speaker. Therefore, it is so sad for us to promote other foreign economies, because this money will leak. There will be leakages into other economies. So, Madam Speaker, with this issue of promoting the local industries, I've said that we create jobs. We have countries like Egypt, Madam Speaker, which is literally a desert. And from that desert, they can grow sugar. They can grow sugarcane, and we get sugar from them. We import sugar from them. While in Kenya, we have the best land, the best parcels of land. We have the best climate and enabling environment where we can grow sugarcane. But we don't want to promote that. Honorable Speaker, His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, said that mambo ni matatu. The third one is to export cartels to heaven. Madam Speaker, President Ruto should take into consideration to export these sugar cartels to heaven. Iyo ya tatu ndio iwe yao, so that we promote the economy of our nation. I really support you, Honorable Salasia, on this motion, because we are creating jobs for our people. You've been fighting for the Mubias Sugar Company to be revived. And I'm very sure that God is going to listen, to hear your prayers. And I'm very sure, together with Mumias and the Sony Sugar Company and also the Chemelil, all these sugar industries must thrive. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Embakasi East. Honorable Rahab Mukami, Member for Nyeri County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate Honorable Sirisia for this motion. Honorable Speaker, I happened to go to Migori last weekend with the President, and I have felt so bad when I've heard what Honorable Fatuma has said, that the stakeholders were not involved in whatever we heard. The President of this country is ready to help the sugar farmers, and I don't think it is easy, and we should not even take it for granted, because you can imagine the President has decided to pay 117 million debt for the sugar farmers. And he's also giving the fertilizers to the farmers. And everybody would like the farmers to continue planting the sugar canes. And we urge the members of the parliament to make sure that they support our farmers so that we can have enough sugar. And by doing that, we'll make sure that there will be no importation of sugar in this country. So, Honorable Sirasia, I really support you. The other thing I want to talk is about the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I don't know why they are allowing cartels to bring the sugar in this country, And they should make sure that the people who are bringing the sugar in this country, they are not rebranding the sugar. Because we have like Mumia's sugar and we have Sony. So without saying much, I just want to say that Honorable Fatuma, all the stakeholders were there and we had all the farmers there, and it was a very big meeting, and the board members were there and they spoke. So I think we should take that positively. Let's not play politics in this, because we want to help our farmers and we want to make sure that our people are going to move forward and we build this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and congratulations, Honorable Sirisia.
Thank you very much. Member for Nyeri County, the Honorable Jared Okello, member for Nyando.
Madam Speaker, from the outset, let me thank you, and on the same breath, thank my brother, Honorable Salasia, for coming up with this. Madam Speaker, in the recent days, we have been agonizing with lots of issues as pertains to sugar. There is an impending sugar bill in the Senate now that we hope that the Senate will align itself to the recommendations of this House so that at least for once we can have a legal framework upon which sugar can be transacted. Madam Speaker, there is the issue of setting aside 117 billion shillings owed by sugar mills by the government of the day, and that is applaudable. And there is also the impending sugar regulations, Madam Speaker, that we have always pursued its gazettement for way too long. And we hope that as we put our arsenals together to address issues of sugarcane, that for once, sugarcane and sugar as a byproduct will have all the matters resolved in good time. Madam Speaker, it is also important to understand why the brouhaha around sugar. Madam Speaker, sugar is the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to mobilizing funds for campaigns. And each electioneering period, Madam Speaker—
1 minute, Honorable Jared Okello. The Honorable Samuel Atandi. What is out of order, Honorable Samuel Atandi?
Madam Speaker, I was just alerting you that I'm here so that I get the chance to. I get the immediate chance so that I can comment on this matter.
Well,
the matter on the
you
floor.
had put an intervention, but luckily you are not far.
Can I be allowed to continue now that I'm on the floor?
No, now you're out of order. The Honorable Jared will proceed and will come to you as soon as possible.
Well, he's perpetuating mischief. But Madam Speaker, as I said, sugar becomes the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to mopping up campaign funds. And you will realize that every electioneering period, the so-called unscrupulous business community will be trooping to government offices relevant to receipt of permits, importation permits of sugar, Madam Speaker. So because this will continue for the longest, we also have to reorient our sugar business in a way that will also thwart the efforts of these sugar barons. Madam Speaker, ask yourself, Mumia's Sugar Company, which was the pride of Africa, not just producing sugar, but ethanol, spirits, and selling hydrogenated electric power to the national grid, that company, just because of poor leadership, dissolved. And we have nothing to write home about it now. Mumia Sugar Company employed thousands and thousands of people directly, not considering the indirect beneficiaries of Mumia Sugar, which were also in hundreds of thousands, if not tens of millions. But because of mismanagement and lack of political goodwill, Mumia's is reeling on its knees, Madam Speaker. What, therefore, can we do? We acknowledge that indeed there is the COMESA rebate when it comes to importation of sugar. But I think the main idea of coming up with COMESA was that when there is a shortage or we have exceeded our locally produced sugar, then there were parameters that could govern importation of sugar, Madam Speaker. Now we are crying foul to anybody who can come to our rescue at this point in time. Madam Speaker, I think Honorable Atandi took my time, and my very able clerks never took cognizance of that, but I want to remind them that I still have 3 more minutes to go. So, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Jared Okelo, you have 10 seconds, but I'll give you 1 more minute.
Thank you.
The clerks took care of the 1 minute that you lost because of the intervention.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, even as we make efforts to revive these sugar companies, we also must step back and look at the issues that created the collapse of all these sugar companies, Madam Speaker. But again, it is important to ask ourselves that why is it only the government mills that are having a problem when private millers are thriving as going concerns, Madam Speaker? So what is it that the private millers are getting right that the government will never get right, Madam Speaker? Even as we put our foot forward for the privatization of sugar mills, we must recognize that farmers must play a critical role. The owners of those farms called nuclears, which are ancestry, so to speak, must also be recognized so that we don't shortchange them by government putting its head in these sugar matters, Madam Speaker. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Jared. I will purposively, honorable members, go to the member for Westlands, the Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to support this motion. Madam Speaker, the issue of sugar in this country has driven many people to poverty, especially the farmers from this sugar-growing region, Madam Speaker. The factories in this region, Madam Speaker, went into importing sugar, and this was facilitated by the defunct Kenya Sugar Board when they licensed factories to import sugar, purportedly to top up on the shortage that was in the country. Madam Speaker, that was the first mistake because factories stopped paying farmers. They found an easy way to bring sugar in the country, and that sugar, and they come and repackage it as if it is coming from these factories, Madam Speaker. And it went on and on like that. And you see some of the CEOs of these factories, when they left the factories, they collapsed. So you wonder what miracle were they performing when they were there, because they were covering up things. So it is important to regulate the importation of sugar so that we can only bring in sugar that is, Madam Speaker, that is only for the shortfall that the country is not meeting. And this normally was just only the industrial sugar. But nowadays we are importing sugar for everything. And this is the reason why the government must strongly put in place the regulations to make sure that sugar that is brought in the country from the Commercial region, it is only to cover the shortfall that we are having. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, we need now to make sure that the factories, as the government is moving to bring in people to lease the factories to investors, so that these people now, their first thing they must do is, Madam Speaker, is to pay farmers and revive these factories to go back to grinding sugar, so that the people who are in this region are not going to be subject to poverty and have make losses. Some of the regions, that factories like Mumias, Nzoia, and others, Madam Speaker, where they're situated, even the communities within that region, Madam Speaker, have completely been rendered in poverty. They are wallowing in poverty because of lack of payment. Sugar was on their farms and all that, Madam Speaker. So we want to support this motion, Madam Speaker, as we move into the new direction that the regulations are going to be put in place so that importation of sugar from the Commercial region or from other region is properly managed. Madam Speaker, we also must always be live to the situation that the middlemen, the so-called cartels, they are the ones who have made our sugar very, very expensive. You find the countries like Sudan, Madam Speaker, they don't have middlemen in the sugar industry. And we find the sugar from Sudan, when it comes to Kenya, is cheaper than our sugar because of the cost of production and also these middlemen who come in and as scrupulous businessmen, Madam Speaker, and exaggerate the price of the sugar so that our sugar becomes more unattractive than the sugar coming from out. So we must also just make sure that we deal with these issues from the onset so that we regulate the sugar industry and that the country can now benefit from this new legislation, Madam Speaker. I want to support this motion and also thank my brother, Honorable Salasha. Madam Speaker, the other day, even when we were having the CBA meeting in Ghana, we met Honorable Salasha as lookalike in that country, and every member of parliament from Kenya was saying there is a Salasha here. But when we get to the person, we found that it was not Honorable Salasha. Honorable Salasha, we have your lookalike somewhere in this world. Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's on a light note.
Thank you very much, Member for Westlands. The Honorable Mary Emase, Member for Teso County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a Member of Parliament for Teso South. My sister Catherine Omanyo is the MP for the county. Thank you. From the onset, I want to support my brother, Honorable Salasya, for coming up with this motion. I come from a sugar growing area. And cane farming is the main cash crop that we have in Busia County. And Madam Speaker, one of the biggest problems in that sector is the importation of sugar, which is branded by so many other millers and sold within the country. So our farmers are disadvantaged because when sugar is imported, then there is no harvesting or a delayed harvesting of of cane from our farmers. So at the end of the day, who suffers the most? It is the farmer. Because that then creates the room for the middlemen to take the stage and buy sugar from the farmers at very low rates, and then they are the ones who end up making the profit when they sell to the millers. So for me, I think this is a very timely motion, and it is very important. Despite the fact that we have the regulations, we have AFA, we have the Crops Act, but there is a problem in enforcement of the regulations that regulate, the laws that regulate sugar. So, Madam Speaker, if you come to Busia, for example, we have two factories. We have the Busia Sugar Factory, we have the Olepito Sugar Factory, which is in my constituency, and as I speak to you, the Olepito Sugar Factory was closed down because of the politics around the sugar industry, because of the issue of lack of zoning. We are told because of lack of enough sugarcane to crush. So for me, if this is addressed so that we have a proper regulation and there is an enforcement of the laws that regulate the sugar industry, then we will have these companies running, we will have our people securing opportunities. Those who are employed in Olepito Sugar Factory, for example, for now they are jobless because the factory closed down. And I think for us it is very important, it's a matter of concern. And that is why I say I support this, this motion. Because what is the policy? What is our policy as a country on issues of sugar? It is to nurture and develop a competitive and sustainable sugar industry, which will, in a long way, and builds our economy and the entire value chain around the sugar industry. So for me, I support this motion. Thank you, Honorable Salasha, for bringing up, and it is important that we get proper regulation and enforcement of regulations to ensure that the country is only importing sugar that is needed to fill in the deficit. Whenever there is sugar branded, sold in our supermarkets, sold in our shops, it is important that Kenyans know where that sugar is coming from. Once that is enforced, then we will.
And this is something which we all know, Madam Speaker, even as members of Parliament. We assume and we pretend that Kenya is a sugar manufacturing country, but in the real sense, we are not. What we consume in this country, from the so-called sugar milling